evening. My name is Arlene Herson. The name of the show is Getting to Know You, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Tonight we are going to get to know an extraordinary lady. She was liberated long before we ever heard of women's lib. Her television show, Girl Talk, was watched by over 40 million people every day. She has also had her own radio series, has written 4 books, has appeared in movies, has raised millions for charity, and is currently starring in the dinner theater production of Butterflies Are Free. And that's just part of it. She's the incomparable Virginia Graham, and let's get to know her. Welcome.
Well, thank you. We didn't mention the Club Benet, did we, darling? Oh, yes, before they have a fit.
Okay,
She's currently appearing at the Club Benet, folksies.
Okay, well, we weren't going to leave out where you were playing. I mean, of course we're going to.
Yes,
okay.
I mean,
it is the Club Benet, and right now we'll give it a plug at the end of the show also, but we'll tell people there you'll be there from?
February 20th when we open, and unless we have a snowstorm, then we'll just keep on acting through March 16th. So that's 4 lovely weeks to come and see one of the cutest comedies that's ever been written.
Okay, but you've had an incredible life leading up to what you're doing now. Okay, you started your most recent book. As I mentioned, you've written 4 of them. Your most recent book is called If I Can Make It, So Can You.
Well, it's close. Isn't that funny? We worried about that title. It's called If I Made It, So Can You.
Oh,
but actually, If I Can Make It is probably a better title, and I'll tell you why. Because my troubles continue. I'm just lucky, I guess. You know, I always think that, well, I've lived through the challenge and now I'm going to, you know, relax. But the dividends of life are great joy in your grandchildren because you live long enough to hear them talking back to your daughter. So that is one of the things you've waited for all your life. But people around you get older and you lose people you love. And life changes because suddenly you grow from being young to young middle age to mature. And then they tell me there's a group called the senior citizens. Now, isn't that lovely? And then there's a word called retirement, which I only use about going to bed at night. So that when you have all these different stages in life, Arlene, nothing gets better. I mean, about your problems, because too many people have now become in your life and their problems are yours.
Okay, but things do get better, and they've gotten progressively better for you. You mentioned, okay, as I started, they haven't. Okay, well, I think they have.
Well, that's
okay,
good.
Well, all right, we'll explore that. Okay,
Yes,
but
yes.
because in your book you said, okay, at the very beginning, I think it was the very first paragraph, you said, I have known the heights of joy and happiness and the depths of despair.
That's right.
And you have. And you've been through so much. As we had mentioned, you've written 4 books, and 2 of them really explore your life quite a bit.
The other 2 are in the mystery department.
Okay, okay, but how have you been able to cope with all the ups and downs? Where do you get your strength?
Well, first of all, I have enormous vitality and energy, which I have the background stock of Swedish and German, which is very hard to beat. A self-made father who came over here and learned what the breath of freedom was because he left persecution and was able to pursue the joy of life. Now, if you've been born to the silk and had education and food and clothing and religious freedom, it's a normal thing. It was like until I had asthma, I never knew what it was not to be able to breathe. Now, when you have a father who constantly reminds you not to look in back to see if a dog is nipping at your heels or somebody has a gun raised to shoot you or to take you off, and you think, oh my God, how can I thank you enough that my father was smart enough to come here, and a mother who was American, who was country American, Wisconsin, and the farm life and the simplicity and all of the, she hated the vanities perhaps as much as I loved them. She was a natural beauty. In the morning, she knew who she was. When I wake up, I think I've had a guest now, so I want to call the police. But she was one of these very natural people. Now, I have this energy from both of them, but I think the love of life, the love of God, the belief that God gave me life and wouldn't want to hurt me, and that I couldn't blame God. My father taught me at a very young age that why was a question that you cannot ask. That in faith, faith is the answer. He said, the way, and I couldn't, the little mind, darling, even the big mind can't accept, why did my son-in-law die at 47? Why did my father, who had so much to live for, die so young? My brother, why did he drop dead? Why did I have cancer? Why do I have all these things happen to me? He said, darling, try to figure something without a beginning and an end. Eternity. I said, well, I can't, Papa. I could visualize something perhaps that began, but it has to end somewhere. And he said, but that's because your mind is limited. Why can't your eyes see New York City from where we are now? Because the lens in our eye can only see so far. So if we admit that there are restrictions on our abilities, then faith is the only thing that can see you through.
Ah, okay, and obviously
Right?
you haven't. Sure.
Tremendous
okay,
faith.
but you mentioned before you did have cancer.
But before that, I had typhoid, I had peritonitis, I had uremic poisoning. I had a partial hysterectomy at 18 years old, was told I never could have children. Which
But
my
you
mother
did.
told me not to believe in.
Okay.
She says, you're lucky you would, and you wouldn't be married. So, I mean, my mother was, of course, the absolute... She saved me from a father who loved me and overindulged me. She was reality. She taught me the hard knocks of the fact that there'll always be someone prettier, there'll always be someone smarter, and there'll always be someone younger. And if you can have that kind of a menu of reality with the great protective security blanket of my father's love, it helps you face life. If you suddenly feel put upon, Arlene, everybody wants to know, why does it happen to me? I used to write letters to God when I had my cancer, in case he had forgotten what a wonderful person I was, you know, all the good things I had done. And then when you realize, well, after all, who am I? Who am I?
And the answer was?
I am a child that God created. He gave me life. And if it's my time to go, I've got to do everything I can to try to prolong my life. But I believe definitely in fate. I really do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would it happen to only the nicest women I knew had CP children, had cystic fibrosis, had all the illnesses that I've been involved with. I keep on looking and saying, why are these the nicest people I've ever known in my life? Because in some way, their niceness and their goodness, they are able to bear the burden. And we become stronger by helping them. We become nice when we help somebody else. Isn't that true?
Well, yes, I agree with you, 100%. But you did have cancer. You did have an operation 28 years ago.
28 years ago. I was given then 6 months to live.
You were? Okay, but what happened? Obviously, it's been 28 years.
Well, maybe I'm living in another planet. In the 6 months, you know, they claim if you're in Mars, 6 months is 28 years. It wasn't my time to go. I had surgery. I had radiation. There was no chemotherapy. There was no sophisticated prolonging life objects. I put my life in God's hands, and my body apparently threw off this virulence. So, but the price I've paid for living has been that I can never go to bed at night without remembering that I had it. Because in telling other people about my cure, or my prolonged life, or whatever you want to call it, I have millions, literally millions of people look at me and say, now look how she looks, look how she feels. Maybe I should go to the doctor when I don't feel well. So, see, it's getting you people to go to the doctor, darling. The first symptom, we all have symptoms. All of us. Not in heart, but in cancer, you always have a symptom. And you say, oh, it'll go as it came, or it isn't happening, and you forget it. If you can go right away, we are saving 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
We really are.
Okay, and obviously you've been saved. We have to take a commercial break right now.
I'm so happy for you.
We'll be right back with my guest, Virginia Graham, after these messages. So please stay with us, and we'll explore more of Virginia Graham's life. We're back with my special guest, Virginia Graham. You just left us at one point that I just want to clarify a little bit.
Sure.
You said before that you were told you could never have children. Right. Obviously, you did have a daughter.
Yes, the boat lurched. We were at Cape Hatteras, and the boat took a lurch, and I got pregnant 4 days after I was married. And my luck, I would have had a premature with hair and nails and teeth, you know. The doctor had me sitting with my legs up for the last 2 weeks because this would have embarrassed the whole family. In those days, you had to wait 9 months. Now, the first child can come anywhere from 5 months on from nerves. Okay, but the second child always takes a full 9 months.
Okay.
And I've had Lynn, and it was a funny thing. I had this marvelous doctor, and I just love going to doctors if they're short. Say, you must only go to a short gynecologist because you don't see anyone at the end of the table, so it's not embarrassing. So I think he used to use a periscope to examine me because he would say, hey, okay, everything's where it should be. And she was the image of him, by the way, for 6 months. So I've had so many internal examinations that I thought I don't mind the IRS. So when I had Lynn, the doctor said to the nurse every time I used to leave the room, he says, now here's a girl. We really should have done an entire hysterectomy on her at 18 years old. She had this ruptured cyst, and the infection was rampant. And my father said, please don't. He says, Virginia loves babies more than anybody in the world. If you could possibly, he said, but Mr. Comas, he says, we don't even know if she could have a baby. He says, well, give her that chance. So when I would go out of the office, the doctor would say, look how happy she is, and this whole pregnancy could reactivate the infection, and we could lose her and the baby. Never occurred to me. Never occurred to me. My catharsis for life has been Scarlett O'Hara, what? Optimism. It just won't happen. It just couldn't happen. And when Lynn was born, 9 months and 4 days after, and I said to the doctor, put her back, she's not done. I had never seen anything look like that in my life. She was beige from head to foot, and with all the heartburn I had, which they told me was the hair growing. Remember I told you the story? I thought we were going to have another Lady Godiva. She was so bald, we diapered the wrong end for 6 months. So, but she became such a beauty. She is so beautiful now, I can't believe it. But perfect. I had her in a couple of hours, and it was just, my life has been predestined to go through a lot of agonies, but to show people that you have to have the appetite for life to digest its menu. There will be spinach if you don't like it, but there will be dessert at the end if you have the philosophy for accepting the fact that God gave us the gift of life. By the same token, when I saw my first CP child, and I see a family that's wiped out by cystic fibrosis, and I see all the pitfalls of illness, and I say, well, why did God give life to those people? Wouldn't they be better off without knowing it? There would be no inquiry into disease and pestilence if someone didn't have it, to make us aware of the fact that as we believe in Scripture, we are our brother's keeper. Who do they turn to? If you have illness, Arlene dear, who do you turn to if it isn't to the community to educate doctors and to raise funds for research? I mean, I just had a friend of mine, I'm very interested in heart too, because I think that's, you know, such an important thing, and they've made such magnificent progress, you know, the best, because all their money goes to research. A friend of mine's husband had a pacemaker put in Thursday, and he was back in business on Monday. This man was a candidate for God knows what. So if someone didn't feel the need to give the Heart Fund money for research, how would all this have happened?
Okay, and you spent a lot of your time, I must admit.
Yes, I do.
You have been on numerous telethons.
I've done 125 telethons.
125 telethons. Wow. Okay, you spent a lot of time raising money to help other people, and that's terrific. But you mentioned before that you felt that much of your life was predestined.
I really do. I really do.
But also another, is it true that you got your name, Virginia Graham, from
a fortune teller? I certainly did, and she became not only a fortune teller, she became fortunate, because she had a client that had her invest in the stock market, and this little woman who used to read for $1.75, you got a chicken salad sandwich, stale bread, and not too much chicken. That was before Dr. Perdue, and a stale coconut cake, you see. Who Perdue is definitely Maricache's brother, I've decided. We'll discuss that later in the image. But at any rate, you got this whole thing for $1.75, and she had a client who told her to invest in the stock market, and my fortune teller became a millionaire. She owns a brownstone on Fifth Avenue.
Wow. Okay.
But she told me that my name was not right. I had taken the name of Gotham when I was writing Stella Dallas and Backstage Wife. You know, I used to write the soaps. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Yes, I did. They burnt more holes than underwear ironing when I was on. So so she said to me, the name of Gotham is no good for you. I wanted to keep my initial, G. And she said, you must have the name of Graham. That is more numerically lucky for you. The next day I got my television show. It's interesting. It's not, I don't believe in it, but so why am I telling it then? I believe in it. A little bit.
Yeah, okay. Well, more than just a little bit, I would think, because you had mentioned also in one of your books that when you were 9 years old, a prediction was made.
Yes, a prediction in Hot Springs, Arkansas. She predicted my whole life. And I don't believe in astrology, but the first thing I read when I get a magazine is the horoscope. You know that type. Yeah. Everybody wants to know what my sign is. I told them Gucci. But I don't really believe in it, except I wish in a way I could pass the buck.
Yeah.
You know, if something, I guess that's what astrology is. If you're not doing well, it was somebody else's fault, not yours. It was predestined that you make a mistake. I think that's really why people, or the things will get better. It's two sides of the coin.
Yeah, okay, well, you haven't made too many mistakes, and we have to take another break right now.
Plenty, but you're not making one now.
Okay, you're going to tell us about them? We'll be right back. We have to take a commercial break right now, and we'll be back after these messages, so please stay with us. We're talking to Virginia Graham. We're back with my guest, Virginia Graham. The fortune teller, as we were talking about, particularly great success. You have had great success in many fields. You have had your own television show, Girl Talk, as you mentioned, the Virginia Graham Show.
Food for Thought, which was the first one locally.
Okay, when you did Food for Thought, at the same time, which was a television program,
I
at the
did
same
with
time,
Mike Wallace.
you did a radio show with
4
Mike
hours
Wallace.
a day I was on with Mike the Magnificent.
How did you do that?
Easy. And not only that, I commuted from Great Neck every day and was raising a family. You know, energy, vitality, outside interests, I guess you have time for everything. When I don't have a thing to do at home all day, I accomplish absolutely nothing. And I have those thawing out days. Do you know, Arlene, I have days where I really am so tired that I just can't breathe because I go all over the country lecturing. That's my main source of income, thank God. Plus the fact that I do at least 40 benefits for cancer a year. And I come home and I'm really just so tired I can't breathe. I have a service on my phone, which I have to have because my husband, you know, is at the Actors Home. He has not been well for 3 years, and he never will be returning. So I've had to learn to live with the sound of silence, which is a very definite thing. And the way I combat that is by having my television on. The second, I don't even know sometimes what's on, although I'm an avid viewer. But I always have people in my home, as long as either radio or television is on. And I leave word with my service when I'm that tired that I will be back in a couple of days, and I don't take any calls, and I just rest and relax. Although I'm straightening pictures and cleaning drawers and stuff like that. But we all have to refuel. And I think this is the big problem with the mother today who's raising a lot of children. She's living in the suburbs, she's cooking, she's chauffeuring, she's the mechanic around the house, and she really doesn't have time for her. And when a woman talks about wanting to be liberated and wanting to have a chance, I think it's this refueling period, darling, that is so difficult when our energies are so taxed. And a man is very tired when he comes home. He's nervous, he's frightened, seniority is his worst enemy. Getting older, this country is the only country in the world where the dividend of old age is that your children get the Social Security check. I mean, there is no posture in this country for the wonderful gift of longevity, the wisdom that you get by living, the charm, the compassion, the understanding. Every other country in the world reveres its senior citizens, and here it's like a dirge on humanity. And so that I feel very sorry for the woman who is not liberated to the point that she feels she's got just to have a little escape time for herself.
Yeah, okay, sure, we all need a little escape time for ourselves.
We really do.
But you work more than most, as I mentioned to you before.
But I'm running away from my troubles, darling. I'm running away from the sorrow of my beautiful young son-in-law dying, and my children, my grandchildren losing the most wonderful father in the world, of Harry's sickness. I've been robbed 6 times in 8 years. I lost my darling young brother of a heart attack. Daddy's gone, mother's gone. My whole husband's family was wiped out with cancer. I am running away from thinking. I need to work, because how can I not question why is this happening to these wonderful people, and why was I the lucky one when all these other people were so superior in every way? And if you keep running, you don't have time. You remember Tara? Remember Scarlett O'Hara?
Yeah, I'll think about it tomorrow.
But you can only think about it tomorrow if you don't have time to think about it today. Yeah. And when I look at my troubles and I see a CP child or a friend of mine whose family, cystic fibrosis, they lost 3 children. It was a familial thing. Well, you say, why didn't they know that it was familial and not do it? Well, their religion was of such a nature that they had to have children. That was part of their religious belief. And I say, and I've had trouble. I have healthy grandchildren. My daughter is young. She will pick up life again. Harry is at the Actors Home where they're taking the best care of him in the world. I was lucky enough to live through all of these illnesses. So instead of looking at the negatives, I am still luckier and would take my troubles back than anybody else's, because I have learned how to cope.
Yeah, by working hard. And now you're doing something kind of different than you've done before. The theater?
No, I've done that since 1965.
You have? I
have a repertoire of 8 plays, but nobody knew about it. But Butterflies Are Free is my favorite.
Okay, why haven't we known about those plays?
Well, because I was working with Clairol as a Goodwill ambassador. I was writing. The public thinks of me as Virginia Graham, and I did most of them out of New York. I've never been on Broadway, you see. They're all at dinner theaters like the Club Benet, which is so wonderful, you know, for me.
Okay, we'll be right back. We have to take another commercial break
dear.
right now. We're talking to Virginia Graham, and we'll be back
5,
after these messages,
4,
and we'll hear more about her performance at Club Benet. We're back with my guest, Virginia Graham. We mentioned that you will be performing in Dinner Theater. Butterflies Are Free at Club Benet.
Opening February 20th through March 16th.
Okay, terrific. Now, it must be very different for you. When you have had your television show and your radio show, you were usually Virginia Graham all the time.
Right.
How about on stage,
This
being
is Virginia
somebody
Graham.
else? Okay.
I met Leonard Gershie, who is the author, and I said to him he must have had a tape under my bed because every word out of my mouth in this play is exactly what happened. It's the story of a mother who gave birth to a child without vision, without sight, but more vision and wit. It is the most humorous, the most adorable, the most typically rebellious, the domineering mother who can't help herself. She's living through her child. She's been widowed, so now she is taking over. And where she wants him to be brave and strong, she's dying because that means she relinquishes her hold on him. The wit, her every line, I learned the play in an hour and a half. Some other plays, like Butterflies Are Free, took me a little longer, Any Wednesday. This is absolutely the way I would have acted. And you know, a lot of people are afraid to go see a play where the premise they think is depressing. This is the most exciting, wonderful experience to realize that most of us are blind. He had much more vision. He saw things without the dimension of a beautiful figure or a beautiful face. He loved the voice. He loved what he heard the voice saying. You know, bias is because we are blind. If we put a blindfold over our eyes, we would never know the color of somebody or their beauty. We just know their physical beauty. We would know the beauty from within. It's a shame that we're using our eyes for
You
such
have a lot of
wrong
beauty
purposes.
from within, and you mentioned that you were playing yourself, Virginia Graham.
Yes, I will not take a play.
Do you feel that
Yes.
you have an image that you must be all the time?
Absolutely. I owe everything to my audience. Would you believe that? Now, that's a stupid thing. But I think you'll find out. I started in my 30s, honey, and this audience made me. They accepted me, and they helped me become Virginia Graham. I have had one marriage. I have a wonderful child. I'm part of the community. If I played any role that was totally contradictory to what they think of as Virginia Graham, I think it would offend them terribly. Now, if I had come to television as an actress like now even Arlene, I was telling the girls at a press luncheon today, Arlene Francis is a fantastic audience. She did a play. It was a little bit more sophisticated than people had seen, and it wasn't successful. And she was marvelous in it, but people wanted to see her in the stereotype caricature of what she's done. And she's one of the best.
Okay, how do you feel about being in that stereotype character that you feel you must be?
Thank God for letting me have it. God has been so good to me. And if that's the way people see me, and if that's the way they want me, what you see is what you get.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Right.
I have to say, in also one of your books, there's another quote that I would like to mention because it really touched me when I read it. You said, I want to share with you the adventures of my life. Maybe they will offer you hope. Maybe they'll comfort you. Maybe they'll give you the courage to face tomorrow without fear. And I'm really counting on this. Maybe they'll make you laugh. They've done all for me, and I thank you for sharing.
Thank you
I thank you
very
for being
much.
here. I hope that you've enjoyed getting to know Virginia Graham and that you'll join us again next week. Good night. It's been a pleasure getting to know you.